Hey guys, I'm back with an update for Marksmanship Hunters. Patch 8.1 was released this week, and there have been a couple of updates since my last video, so I thought I'd make this video to give everyone an update. I'm not going to cover all of the nitty-gritty in detail. If you want more detail, such as an in-depth guide, simulation of stats, rotations, and all that other stuff, check out my guide over at Wowhead or Azurethorian's guide over at Icy Veins. As always, feel free to hit me up with any questions in my Discord or drop by Trueshot Lodge, and me or any of the other experts will be happy to help. All right, so first I'm just going to quickly go over all the changes that we've had on the PTR and that were released for Marksmanship Hunter. Afterwards, I'll give you my opinion on the changes and what the playstyle looks like as of now. So baseline abilities, they buffed Aim Shot, Arcane Shot, and Multi-Shot. The aim shot buff is always nice, obviously. To compensate for the buff on Arcane Shot and Multi-Shot, they actually nerfed precise shots by 25%. This change is basically damage neutral and is simply a quality of life change. It basically just takes some of the damage away from precise shots, making the baseline ability a little stronger. Things like using Arcane Shot to stay off focus cap and just using Arcane Shot or Multi-Shot in downtime just feels like less of a waste now. So a little bit of quality of a life change. Trick Shots was buffed by 10%. So now Trick Shots deals 50% additional damage to nearby targets instead of 40%. In addition, when Trick Shots is applied, rapid fire is no longer restricted to 3 targets but can now spread up to 6 targets. This is a minor quality of life change and is once again damage neutral since previously we had 3 targets with full power rapid fires and now we have up to 6 targets with half power rapid fires. Unfortunately, we still cannot cleave onto 2 targets or deal damage to more than 6 targets via True Shot. Perhaps the biggest change they made was True Shot. We've been asking for forever for them to change True Shot. They finally changed it. True Shot now reduces the cooldown of Aim Shot and Rapid Fire by 60% and causes Aim Shot to cast 50% faster. In addition, it's now a 2-minute cooldown down from a 3-minute cooldown. This change actually makes True Shot pretty useful as opposed to its previous iteration. Currently, True Shot is actually reducing Aim Shot and Rapid Fire by more than intended. As of now, it reduces Aim Shot and Rapid Fire by almost double what is indicated by the tooltip. Whether this difference will remain, we will have to wait and see, but it's gone live like this, so it is more than welcomed, of course. Obviously, it's currently working better than intended, according to the tooltip, so we'll have to wait and see what they actually intended, whether they meant for it to go like this or whether the tooltip's wrong. Who knows with Blizzard. Talent wise, there were a couple of changes as well. Barrage and Streamline were nerfed a bit. Barrage just got a flat damage nerf, and Streamline now benefits your rapid fire by an additional 20% down from 30%. These aren't really very big nerfs, and personally, in my opinion, weren't really needed. Streamline will still be used for big AoE situations, and Barrage is still Barrage. It's only semi-relevant in very, very heavy AoE situations, and still pulls the entire world, so we still probably won't use this. Volley, Piercing Shot, and Serpent Sting were buffed slightly. The buff to Volley doesn't really do much. The issue with Volley was the low RPPM and unreliability from it, not really the damage. So the 15% buff doesn't make that much of a difference, unfortunately. For Piercing Shot, now Piercing Shot has armor penetration, which is about a 6% buff since most raid bosses have about 6% armor. Again, this buff doesn't really make Piercing Shot that usable, as it still falls behind the other talents in this row, even in AoE. The buff to Serpent Sting, sort of on the same boat. The issue wasn't really the damage, it was more the focus cost and the frequency at which we had to apply it. Serpent Sting isn't too bad in pure single target situations, but it's really lacking in AoE and multi-dotting, which is really what the purpose of the talent is, I believe. It just takes too much focus and takes too much time reapplying it, especially on multiple targets. In addition to these number changes, Explosive Shot and Lethal Shots have been completely reworked. So here you can see Explosive Shot is no longer a slow moving target which must be exploded manually. It's now a shot that explodes after 3 seconds. Very, very good quality of life change. Many people have been begging them to change this for so long, since Nighthold days. Something to note on Explosive Shot is that if your target dies, it will not automatically detonate, but will be canceled So obviously that's a big turnoff. Just be careful where, like, what targets you're casting it on, obviously. Lethal shots now causes arcane shot and multi-shot to have a 20% chance to reduce the cooldown of rapid fire by 5 seconds. This is sort of a love-hate change in most people's eyes. Some people liked the Machine Gun Hunter build, but most people just didn't like how brain dead it made Marksman. Not that this new build is really any more difficult, but luckily, this change completely does away with the Machine Gun Hunter build. Unfortunately, this new talent isn't very good. It's very RNG and its effect is somewhat mediocre. Double tap still beats it out in general, as lethal shots is essentially a worse version of double tap. You basically get one rapid fire every minute, which is equal to double tap. But obviously, double tap you can control when you get it every minute. So double tap just is a little better. Lastly, a couple of utility buffs came our way. Steady Shot now also increases the duration of Concussive Shot by 3 seconds on the target. Obviously, a Concussive Shot must be applied first. This is primarily useful in arenas or open world PvP. Unfortunately, it doesn't really provide that much utility for us in raids or anything like that. Bursting Shot was also buffed. The knockback now knocks targets even further back and snares them by an additional 2 seconds. Very, very good quality of life change for utility, especially for Mythic Plus. So things like Sanguine, we basically have a Typhoon now, which is very good in terms of that. So some other general changes. Lone Wolf ramp up timer has been reduced finally, thank God. It's gone down from 1 minute to 20 seconds. While it's still a bit cumbersome, this at least allows us to pet juggle in certain scenarios. So you go into a mythic dungeon. Obviously, pets are still better in pure single target. So you whip out your pet for a boss, and say it's a third boss and mother load. You summon it, or you dismiss it. You ride the cart down, and by then you have your lone wolf buff back. So it's still definitely usable in some situations. The 20 seconds is still a little cumbersome, but it's way better than it was. Some other things, you can now disengage when channeling rapid fire. And if you're casting rapid fire on someone, the channel will not cancel if they go out of line of sight from you. Obviously, if the channel finishes, then it'll stop, but you can go around a pillar and the channel will keep going and still do damage to them once you return to line of sight. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if it's intended or not, but a negative aspect of the new rapid fire, if you're rapid firing on a target and it dies, you can no longer finish your cast of rapid fire on another target. So you can't rapid fire switch targets to another target. The rapid fire will cancel if you attempt to switch targets or if your rapid fire kills that target. So that's a little shitty. Hopefully that's not intended. Hopefully that's changed. But for the most part, a lot of these improvements are for the better. For PvP, the only change was Sniper Shot. It now deals 20% of the target's maximum health and physical damage. And it only increases your range by 40% for 6 seconds as opposed to the previous 15 seconds. So a little bit of a rework. I'm not sure. I don't really PvP that much, so I'm not sure how I feel about that. But I don't think that really helps Marksman in PvP. So I think Marksman is still pretty bad in PvP in that regard. All right, let's go over the Azurite changes. Arcane Flurry has been removed and has been replaced with a new trait called Surging Shots. Surging Shots increases the damage done by rapid fire per shot fire, starting lower and increasing per shot. It also makes aim shot have a 15% chance to reset the cooldown on rapid fire. This is a very solid trait, pretty good for single target, but it's one of our best in AoE. So some other things, they've slightly nerfed Unerring Vision and slightly buffed Focused Fire. Neither of these really affect the traits very much. They're both still very desired. Lastly, a new defensive trait was introduced called Nature's Salve. It makes Exhilaration heal you for an additional about 10k, and its cooldown is reduced by 15 seconds. It's not an awful trait, but it's still not one of our best traits, so I don't really recommend going for it. Okay, so what do all these changes mean? Well, in short, they make Marksman play how it was intended to play. They did away with Machine Gun Hunter build, as previously stated. We are no longer single target turrets, we no longer ignore rapid fire, and has been returned to a staple of the spec. Talent-wise, it's looking like we're going Master Marksman for almost every scenario. Careful aim for most scenarios, although explosive shot will see some use in heavy AoE fights. For the level 60 talent row, we'll most likely be taking Hunter's Mark in most situations and Streamline in very heavy AoE situations. For level 90 talents, we'll most likely take Double Tap in almost every situation and occasionally Barrage in super heavy AoE situations. And finally, it looks like we're going to be choosing between lock and load or calling the shots depending on your Azurite traits. Um, Typically, we want to choose calling the shots for AoE situations such as dungeons. For Azurite traits, I don't recommend steady aim anymore. I know many marksman hunters had a ton of steady aim traits. That's what you were going for with a machine gun hunter build. No more. Lethal shots has been removed. That no longer exists. Get rid of those steady aim traits. As long as we're in Uldir, you'll always need at least one Laser Matrix or Archive. If you're running Mythic Plus, you obviously don't need them, but Archive is still a very solid trait regardless. Unerring Vision has come to the forefront as a highly, highly desired trait due to the True Shot change. It also pairs extremely well with calling the shots, giving you almost 100% critical strike during True Shot, which is now on almost a 1 minute cooldown because of calling the shots and the new 2 minute True Shot. So definitely try and get Unerring Vision. You don't really need more than 2 traits. Obviously, we only have three slots right now. In January, we'll have six slots available. You still will only want about 2 Unerring Vision. More than that gives you more than 100% crit, and it's not really needed. So we'll get other traits when the time comes. For single target, we want Tidal Surge, Razan's Fury, or In the Rhythm. And for AoE, Surging Shots, In the Rhythm, and Focus Fire are all very strong, especially when paired with Streamline. Stats are pretty straightforward for Marksman now. Mastery is good in single target and is by far our best in AoE, so I highly recommend aiming for pieces with Mastery on them. As for other stats, you generally want Haste for single target and Crit for AoE as they're inverse of each other. However, some traits affect this. Unerring Vision gives you an immense amount of crit during True Shot, and since we have True Shot every minute-ish with calling the shots, this devalues crit a little bit. Likewise, if we do take calling the shots, having True Shot up every minute, this also devalues haste since we don't really need that much haste due to the effect of True Shot. Haste is better when you take lock and load. This also means that the value of traits such as In the Rhythm change depending on your talents as well. Versatility is sort of mediocre in general. So to summarize my rambling about stats, shoot for mastery. For all else, as always, it's best to sim yourself using rate bots. All right, let's take a look at what the new rotation looks like. The idea behind this spec is pretty simple. We don't want to cap on aim shot charges. We don't want to cap on focus. We want to use rapid fire off cooldown and use up all of our precise shots. We use steady shot to regen focus now, and we no longer use the fish for procs like the old lethal shots build. True Shot actually feels relevant again. We actually get to use it on pull rather than 10 seconds down the line for that aim shot charge. It allows us to pump more aim shots and rapid fires while it's active, making it feel very useful. True Shot paired with calling the shots and Unerring Vision traits seem to be the way to go as of now, so try to get those Unerring Vision traits. It makes True Shot almost a minute cooldown with up to 100% critical strike rating, depending on how many traits of Unerring Vision you have. If you have double tap and some unerring traits, you actually want to hold double tap until about 8 seconds into True Shot and use it when you get that fatty 100% crit buff. If you have careful aim, use the double tap with aim shot if you're inside that careful aim window, else you want to use it with rapid fire. If you have any surging shots or focus fire traits, try to always use it with rapid fire over aim shot unless, again, you're in that careful aim window. I should note that on the opener, you still want to precast double tap to save that GCD, but mid-fight, you want to do what I said above. So what does True Shot look like? Well, you still want to use your precise shots. You don't want to ignore your precise shots. You want to ideally cast more aim shots within your True Shot window than rapid fire. True Shot simply reduces the cooldown of rapid fire. Other than the cooldown, we don't actually benefit from casting rapid fire inside of True Shot. We don't get a damage buff, we don't get more haste or anything like that, aside from the critical strike, obviously, from Unerring Vision. We actually want to cast rapid fire prior to entering True Shot. So rapid fire, True Shot. So our rapid fire is still gaining that CDR, right? But now we're using True Shot with the faster aim shots to primarily cast aim shots. So aim shot, precise shots, aim shot, precise shots, rapid fire, aim shot, precise shots, etc. So we want to rotate. Um, Currently, we're still deciding what is best, whether to use all of your precise shots, whether to use just the free one. We're still perfecting this, and obviously, once we have the exact best rotation during True Shot, within True Shot, we will update the APL. You'll be able to sim for it. You'll be able to look for yourself. Obviously, both of the guides will be up to date as soon as we know exactly how you should go about it. So until then, check the guides, keep up to date. But for now, just play like normal. I personally only use one precise shots. A couple other theories say that you should just play like normal. Use all of your precise shots despite capping on aim shots. Sorry for my rambling. I would suggest just play like normal until we know for sure what the exact best build is. So our AoE has improved somewhat due to the trick shots buff. Obviously, the explosive shot change is a huge improvement. You typically still want to double tap, especially since you're able to sync it up with those nutty true shot critical strike windows. And so your true shot with the new buff is going to look something like multi-shot, true shot, aim shot, multi-shot, rapid fire, multi-shot, aim shot, multi-shot. And then I would again save double tap if you have those unerring visions for the last about when you hit 10 seconds into true shot, double tap and then cast that fatty aim shot for the 100% crit plus the double aim shot to just blow up targets. If you don't have unerring vision traits, obviously you want to double tap prior to true shot, since the extra crit doesn't really mean anything to you. So in summary, I'm really happy with some of the changes, but Marksman still needs a little bit of work. Overall damage is probably a little less single target for most people. It's a little better AoE. We're not an OP class. I think BM is still probably going to outperform Marksman in most cases. There are certain fights where, since we have the 100% crit for True Shot, for example, like Fetid Devourer, Marksman is amazing due to the vulnerable window. If you pop, careful aim window plus the True Shot, if you have unerring vision, that 100% crit, with the 100% buff at the end of Fetid Devourer, that is a huge spike in damage. So certain fights like that, Marksman will probably beat BM, but in general, Marksman will probably not beat BM, and of course will not beat Survival in its current state without some sort of buff. So for Mythic Plus, Marksman's gotten a ton better from its previous iteration. As you can see, some of the footage in this video is taken directly from Mythic Plus. It can perform very well in certain dungeons, but I think the target cap still hinders us in certain dungeons, such as Waycrest or Shrine of the Storm. In these dungeons, I simply went with Master Marksman, Careful Aim, Hunter's Mark, Double Tap, and Calling the Shots. This build is probably going to be the go-to for most dungeons. I think those big pull dungeons like Shrine, we might take Explosive Shot. We might end up taking Streamline, although Streamline sort of fucks with your True Shot windows, so I'm not really sure how I feel about it yet. This build is definitely something you need to get used to. There's a ton of setup pre-pull, such as Hunter's Mark, Pet Juggling, precast aim shot, and there's a little bit of trickery into gaming Hunter's Mark. But one thing that's very nice about this build, unlike the previous iteration with lethal shots, where this build makes you good in both AoE scenarios and very good in single target boss encounters. So this is a very good talent build for Mythic Plus. Um, 8.1 brought a ton of quality of life changes to Marksman, but there are still some issues with the spec, obviously. The restriction on the number of targets still remain. While the buff to rapid fire and trick shots is great, not being able to damage the 2 targets or more than 6 targets is a huge hindrance, something that BM and survival don't really have issues doing. The Lone Wolf ramp up timer is a huge improvement. Obviously, the 20 seconds still sort of sucks, but definitely a little better. While they did fix the playability of the spec, like I said earlier, the damage isn't quite where it needs to be. A little buff needs to happen before it becomes the meta for hunters. Potentially, it can be fine damage wise. We're again, like I said earlier, we're still working on the APL. We're still min maxing, trying to figure out where stuff should go exactly. So it could get better damage wise. Also, as I mentioned earlier, there's a current quote bug with True Shot. We don't know if it's intended, what's going to happen with it. So if they end up fixing it, our damage is going to go down, obviously. So if the bug remains or is intended, Marksman's damage will be pretty solid in the state that it is. Again, we're pretty middle of the pack right now. If the bug is fixed, Marksman will need some sort of buff to compensate for its low overall damage. So right now, sort of a wait and see game. Enjoy True Shot while it lasts, and if it's intended, well, that's awesome because I personally love casting nothing but rapid fires and aim shots during True Shot. Be sure to check True Shot Lodge for any status updates on True Shot, as I'm sure we will have some more clarification on this in the near future. All right, well, that about wraps it up for the 8.1 Marksman Hunter update. Mostly heading in the right direction, but still have a ways to go before the spec is ironed out. Again, for more details, head over to my Wowhead guide or check out Azurethorian's guide over at Icy Veins, where you can find the latest and greatest info on all things marksman. Come hang out with me in my stream or on my Discord. There are links in the description below. And as always, be sure to follow and subscribe for more hunter info. Thanks for watching, guys.